Adam Munsterteiger, BuffStampede.com, one of the best and most knowledgeable people when it comes to the Colorado Buffaloes. And Chase and I were joking, like, this is probably like when you would think the offseason is, kind of, right? Things slowing down. We're talking a lot of basketball. And then, boom, the big news comes out today. Coach Prime gets his guy in his 5-star offensive tackle. Mr. Munsterteiger, welcome on into the program. Talk to me about how this came to fruition.
Yeah, it's an interesting story for sure. And, the name of our website is 24/7 Sports. And it feels like during the Coach Prime era that is very reflective of there's never a dull moment around here. And it comes with a little bit of humor in the sense that Jordan Seaton did not include Colorado in his list of five schools that he named just a couple of days ago. And so he was throwing everybody off the scent and announces today on national TV, and then had lined up some interviews. And Steve Wiltfong from 24/7 Sports got him on the horn as well, and he talked about it. I did a little digging, and it had been trending for Colorado in favor of Jordan Seaton for a little bit. But, this Coach Prime staff, they do a pretty good job of keeping things close to the vest. Now, Coach Prime kind of did let it slip after the Utah loss to end their season that he just gave us a little bit of time. In about a week and a half, we're going to have some news, and was kind of teasing this upcoming commitment. And then the timing of it with the announcement falls in line with Lo Hol expected to be Colorado's new offensive line coach, replacing Bill O'Boyle. That group obviously struggled, and Bill O'Boyle, after a rough season in Boulder, follows Sean Lewis to San Diego State. So Lo Hol having that opportunity when you're a Jordan Seaton and you can pick your college as the number 1 ranked offensive tackle in the country, you get to go on your timing. And so for him to be able to have a conversation with Coach Lo Hol was an important part of just kind of finalizing this whole process towards being a Buff.
So let's talk about Jordan Seaton, the player, right? 5-star, consensus, or at least one of the best offensive lineman recruits in the nation here. He was in Boulder at some point throughout the season as well, from IMG, which is essentially, the Alabama of high schools when it comes to, producing players for the next level. What are the Buffs getting in Jordan Seaton?
One of the more college-ready offensive line prospects that I've ever seen. And this isn't something that I'm saying as somebody covering Colorado as a reaction to him coming into the Buffs, because I've mentioned this, I think, to everybody that's asked me about Jordan Seaton since I saw him on his visit to Colorado. And he's listed at about 6'5", 287. He's actually trimmed quite a bit of weight. He was bigger at 330, but there's something about his frame that looks different than your average 287 pounder. He's got a very solid core, and he's got a 6'10" wingspan. He's got the strength to play on the interior, so he brings that versatility. He's somebody that's prepped at IMG Academy, so he's already kind of gotten a little bit of that college experience before really having to begin that college experience at Colorado. He's going to be an early enrollee. So you start talking about check marks that you want to hit when you talk about being an elite offensive line prospect. And I don't know if I found one that Jordan Seaton doesn't check. Now, there's certainly no guarantees with any high school recruit, and we've seen guys, Darryl Scott, Marcus Houston, 5-star guys, come into Colorado and not live up to that hype. And so you got to have the work ethic. Everything that I've heard tells me that Jordan Seaton does, and this is somebody that, as we saw with his path by going to IMG Academy and wanting to be an early enrollee and really taking on, an opportunity where there's going to be a lot of pressure on him at Colorado. It kind of shows his level of confidence in himself. There's not going to be an offensive freshman in the country that probably has more of a spotlight on them, given the issues that Colorado had protecting Shedeur Sanders last year, and given how big a deal Jordan Seaton is and the splash that this announcement makes. So credit to him for stepping up to the challenge, because this is going to be a big spotlight he's stepping into.
Let's stay on the topic of offensive line. You mentioned that Colorado has hired Lo Hol to be the offensive line coach. What was your initial reaction to Lo Hol? What are some of the things that you've learned about him throughout the last 2 days?
Well, initial reaction was I remember him, and that's because he played for a year or two, I think, of high school football down south of Colorado Springs and was actually set to be a bust. Academics needed a little shoring up, so he went to the junior college route, and really blew up there was, an All-American both the years there before transferring to Oklahoma, and then was on one of the best college offenses of all time with Sam Bradford there at Oklahoma, and went on to be a second-round draft pick. And so that's the part that I remember. And then you're doing a little digging on him as a coach, but he's been an analyst the last 4 years. So even reaching out to some folks, there's not a whole lot of opinions that I'm getting back now. Coach Prime put out there with a meeting that he had with some of their content creators the other day. It just talked about how Phil Lo Hol really knocked it out of the park when they did their interview. And so it sounds like he did a really good job of kind of selling his vision for what his role will be, trying to improve those protection issues that we talked about. And I mean, getting Jordan Seaton to announce that pretty quick to when you're getting hired is another feather early in the cap of the Phil Lo Hol hire. I mean, if you've been around covering Colorado football for any amount of time, these coaching hires can tend to be a crapshoot, and certain guys you think are going to be home run hires like Sean Lewis don't end up working out for whatever reason. With him, it turned out just not to be a great fit with Shedeur. We'll see with Phil Lo Hol. I think that there's a lot to like there, but also some question marks just because he doesn't have that extensive experience coaching at the college level as a full-time position coach.
The one position that a lot of people are interested to see, who's going to coach that dynamic and whatnot, is obviously the offensive coordinator. And there's been, you mentioned Sean Lewis, a lot of conversation about Pat Shermer as well. Have you found any clarity on that realm? It seems like Pat Shermer is going to be the guy by all accounts. Am I right? Am I wrong? What's your feel about offensive coordinator for the Buffs here?
I think that's in pencil right now, but not in pen yet. It's kind of the impression that I've gotten. And so hopefully that's something that's able to be a little bit more clear than the next time I talk with you guys. But, as Coach Prime said a couple of days ago, it sounded like at that point that Pat Shermer was most likely going to be the play calling going forward, but that hadn't been a final decision. I don't think had been made there quite yet.
How much, and you might have to speculate a little bit here, but how much do you think it impacts recruits when you tell them that the offensive coordinator might be Pat Shermer? How much do you think they want to know who the offensive coordinator is, those offensive recruits?
Yeah, I mean, I think around here, Pat Shermer's reputation is worse than what it would be for 18, 19-year-old high school recruit in Georgia. I think that Coach Prime and the way he would talk about Pat Shermer's relationship with Shedeur and why that's a special fit that they really want to cultivate, giving the keys to Shermer this year, because obviously he was running Sean Lewis's offense there. And if you're Coach Prime and you're Shermer, you point to maybe some of the wrinkles in that Arizona game. And, okay, these are a few things we want to do that are going to maximize Shedeur's potential. And here are these offensive linemen we're bringing in. So it's on you, if Pat Shermer is your play caller, to sell the positives. And maybe if you're going into a living room of somebody at Cherry Creek and their father's a big Broncos fan, maybe that conversation's a little bit different. But I don't think that Pat Shermer has as bad a reputation nationally as a coach as he has locally here, just because of his struggles as the play caller for the Broncos.
There's only so many people that coach in the NFL and coach at high-level college football. Like, let's pump the brakes a little bit on the Pat Shermer skepticism. I mean, he knows what he's doing to an extent. But to take it back here to the conversation at hand with the recruiting process, how does Coach Prime now attack the rest of the offensive line, right? Because Chase and I were talking about how, it was about as bad as it gets last year for Colorado. And you bring in Jordan Seaton, consensus 5-star and whatnot. You get the best guy out there of the high school age kids. How do you think Coach Prime and his coaching staff attack building out the rest of this offensive line now that they got their big guy?
Yeah, you still need a couple of those big guys. I think Tyler Brown is somebody that they had high expectations for this past season. Obviously, he had already proven himself under Coach Prime at Jackson State, was an FCS All-American, was not eligible to play this last year. And so, again, maybe things are a little bit more in pencil than pen right now, but he's a guy I could see being a starting guard. Savion Washington, I know that Coach Prime really reveres, and is somebody that has NFL size. And so Hank Zielinski is a guy that you saw some promise out of as a true freshman. Those would be kind of the main names that would come to mind initially, but you've still got work to do there. Jordan Seaton, you bring him in, you don't know if he's going to be at tackle right away or if you're going to maybe ease him in at guard. Sometimes you see that with guys that are going to end up being tackles, but you bring them in and to take a little pressure off them, you put them at guard their first year. We saw that with Ryan Miller coming as a 5-star recruit at Colorado back in the day. But, yeah, there's still work to do there on the offensive line, but it's maybe – I shouldn't say maybe. It's not as dire as it looked just a handful of hours ago when you start to look at what Jordan Seaton can do from a momentum standpoint of, okay, we really are only a couple pieces up front away from being one of the more dynamic offenses in the country.
All right, so we got 13 days left until signing day. We know we're going to see some fireworks. I think that's already a given. What are you expecting? And I know you've probably talked about this on the message board as well, but what are you expecting in terms of how many more high school recruits are they going to get, and then the focus on the transfer portal?
Yeah, I'd probably expect maybe somewhere in the neighborhood of 15-ish high school signees, and then, part of kind of filling in that other end of it with incoming transfer guys is going to be figuring out the numbers, and we have not actually seen a ton of attrition out of Colorado's program through the portal. It hasn't been like it was last year when there was that mass exodus. So you're still going to have to see those numbers be pretty low with the high school recruiting. So maybe 15 between high school and graduate transfers that you bring in. But Jaquan McCroy is another name to keep an eye on. He is a offensive line prospect that is committed to Oregon right now. He was out in Boulder on a surprise visit last weekend, and I hear that Colorado's got a chance with him. And you've got a couple other guys that are kind of in the mix, but it's going to be a lot of portal heavy recruiting once you get the last few remaining high school guys locked up here, because I think they pretty much want to be done with high school recruiting, give or take a recruit here or there going into that regular signing period.
Adam Munsterteiger, buffstampede.com. Check him out. He mentioned it 24/7, 365. That's everything that's going on over there.